Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 138th episode of our first run on YouTube through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist and about to get Transformations and Liberations to level 9. But before we do that, we need to read a bunch of books, and then I need to turn an impulse into a name day riddle. So I'm just going to let the timers run by. We're at kind of the halfway point of the day, so I do need to start thinking about how I'm going to use my surplus elements of the soul, but part of that will be brewing some tea, I think, and then we may take a minute and I think a little gardening will definitely take care of the birds. There's a couple of things that I want to get done, but the first priority really does need to be transformations and liberations. Alright, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So it did occur to me I do need to touch the furniture again, so it wasn't just the impulse. We'll take care of Kitty's armchair in this case. I'm a little reluctant to use the metal in this case. Shaft it is. Investigate this object. Okay, we have our bronze spintria. Let's see if this messes everything up. No! Just wanted the spintria to line up, man. Yeah. Honestly, this doesn't really feel like a good ordering, but it's what I got. All right. I need at least one more metal. Nothing saying I can't use this other one, though, so. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Okay, so this gets turned immediately into a name day riddle. The Beekeeper's Ends. Dialogues with bees and uses for honey as erratically recorded by Ricardo Milagro, gardener of Hush House in Musgrave's time. Milagro spends an entire chapter on his hatred of wasps, which he describes as the vile pretenders. Milagro claims that bees retain many traditions passed down from the earlier and greater branches of their species, but they are fiercely jealous of these traditions being passed to lesser insects and insist above all on an oath of secrecy. Tragically, therefore, he is unable to describe these more substantial and powerful traditions. So we'll go to the dispensary. We'll transform that into a name day riddle. Doesn't actually have to be a tryst, but I guess the question would be, what else am I going to apply? Like, do I want to use the health for that? Actually, in this case, yes, because I'm clearly not going to be able to go to the beehive that many times. So this would say to me that over time we have secured the transformations and liberations. So let's start thinking about how I want to apply my other... Okay, so in summer, first of all, we've got Trumpeter's Lily in... Okay, well, we can do one of those. Okay, Moth Orchids. I won't say no to more. Fragrant Chalice, how are we doing for that? Oh, you know what? One of each doesn't hurt. I'm trying to think if I need sea holly. I seem to remember it takes up a bunch of space. Yeah, I've got some here. I mean, it's not terrible, right? It does have the winter aspect. I think I'm going to go for the proper vegetables. Not to imply there are improper vegetables in this, but I don't really want to use drums and dances, but it's the one I remember. All right, so that gives me something to start with. I also think we're due for a trip to Crowcross Sands. So, sea stories, sand stories. Again, the metal is going to be used to level up the transformations and liberations, which tells me I can use the lodge fireplace. We use that to brew another second flush of Sam. That should at least give me something to start with. Again, we've got kind of an overflow of various teas available to me, so I don't need to go crazy with some of this, but I figure each of kind of the containers that I have, like they're an opportunity for me to have more tea available, and seeing as I'm not going to be using these elements of the soul for anything else, it's just as easy for me to use those now. All right. So, we have got Sunset Celia and the End of Days. An obliviate adept identified only as the Emiliano rants desperately about the part Sunset Celia played in the intercalate as the proxy of the sun. Now she walks behind the Watchman, but did she always? She has many of the characteristics of a maid in the mirror, after all. In older texts, she has been called Caelia the Elegabline. Perhaps she was his daughter, perhaps Tryphon's sister. Perhaps, like the Watchman himself, she is like a shadow cast by two candles. What must be revealed will be revealed. Our order's root is tainted, but its branches flourish beneath the shelter of the Watchman's greater tree. I shall invoke its rights before the chancel, the cruciate, and the road. I shall write a final history, or another shall write it for me. So I believe this might be, the tip that allows me to find that treasure of the house. So it says, our order's root is tainted, but its branches flourish beneath the shelter of the Watchman's greater tree. I shall invoke its rights before the chancel, the cruciate, and the road. I shall write a final history, or another shall write it for me. This book has Sacra Lamea, which of course is how we found that. So I think depending on what I've got in my inventory, we may actually do that next. Damascene Traditions of the House of Leith, another Sacra Lamea text. The House of Leith was an order of immortals who sought obscurity, rejecting their past and future. If the author of this short text is to be believed, the initiates of the Damascene branch were much more radical than their fellows elsewhere. The house generally forbade any potentially procreative activities for fear of the terrible consequences of too long bearing a child. The Damascene order took this much further. At one point, male initiates were required to undergo castration, and female initiates to strangle any children they had previously borne. These measures were so horrific that the order was shaken by repeated schisms, and eventually absorbed into the local sisterhood of the Knot as a society of healers and exorcists. I don't need to give up the occult scrap, actually. I can give up the wind and waiting, which I think I'll do instead. Kitty's armchair. This looks very much like the armchair in which Kitty Mazarine, second librarian, sat for Elberton's famous group portrait. Kitty Mazarine, the story goes, napped in an armchair and dreamt of mirrors. She woke to find herself humming an unknown melody. That melody became her fuguing tune, 30 Birds. If this really is that armchair, it's a little bit of history. Advice on containment. Thirza Blake discusses ways to keep wood things out of trouble and Mansus things in it. Thyrza is irritatingly light on specifics, insisting above all that the duties of an adept are the duties of a host, and that a conjured spirit should be kept in as luxurious a vessel as possible. Thyrza notes the similarities between the lantern-long habit of scrying, returning to the physical world despite their absence of a body by entering a mirror or light, and Pomander's techniques for confining Mansus-Long to mirrors. She wonders whether Pomander himself might be lured to visit Hush House if provided with a sufficiently alluring scrying. On the white, Solomon Husher writes, perhaps allegorically, of winter and its long, slow, doomed romance with the sun. The epigraph is sunset at noon. On closer investigation, the work seems to be a theory of aesthetics, or perhaps a set of warnings about the dangers of painting. Husher writes distractedly about his suspicion of colors and his yearning for death. He hints at a great work he has envisaged or begun, where the palest of paintings will enthrall the world. He returns again and again to certain compelling phrases, which he claims are the secret words of winter. Moth's gift or mine? As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. I'm going to take a risk here and restore the Faust this time. And the poached mackerel. So in theory, we should be ready food-wise for the salon. We'll take care of drinks in just a little bit. All right, so we should just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1 minute. Now I'm curious with the wind in waiting. This one's a bit tricky. And you know what? It'd be better if I did this at the Gullscry workbench. So I'll add the whist just so I can have an element of the soul there. So take the Mazarine Fife, and then as a second best, we'll go for Baron Silence Astrolabe. And the tricky part here is, I believe... excuse me. Wind and Waiting is a tricky one for me to get. So I think it's just Furs and Feathers I have to work with it. It wasn't even that. Okay. Well... And that's not 15. Okay. I believe the feather can give me a little more. Cool. Might be willing to do it, but Faust would obviously help me out as well. So now to remove any mystery, let's just do this with the... we'll do this with all of the sky stuff. Okay. It's not the most convenient timing, but I think I'm going to try and make it work with the... Ooh. I think I may lose my Faust overnight, to be completely honest. And then I have to use... Well, yeah. That's fine. I'll still use the Wind and Waiting. Like, it's clearly the right... it's clearly the right call, but... I might be doing something dumb with my... elements of the soul. Now, in terms of working out the rest... Here we go. Steam and Scent both rise. It's ready. So I think I'm going to move... I'm going to take the Evening Isles coffee as a start. Actually, I'm going to take both the coffees. Evening Isles and Dawn Lion. Douglas and Arthur can work that out among themselves. I try to save the second Flesh of Sam for Daymare, seeing as I don't have a lot of knock drinks. Okay, now forge-wise, we should just be able to pour a glass of the honey-scarred jasmine, seeing as we have a whole bunch of it. Neither of which have been touched, so... In fact, for all I know, we already have one poured out, but... Nope, okay. Poured out. Soothing to the senses. Actually, in the promotional material, I think there's a version with agave, which, if that's true, I don't think I actually have the history. Agave Eterna is the name of the history plant. I should test that, actually. Again, it's not something that I'm doing based on gameplay. It's really just there was some promotional material where they showed off a bunch of the stuff that you could make. That's weird I haven't actually gone for the history plant yet. You think I'd keep some around just for the off chance that I would need it? Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Can I fit you? Yes, but then I'm probably going to have trouble fitting the pitcher of water. Trying to remember, I think Eason may want a scale drink, so I may actually need another lantern, which is fine. I'll just use the cup of tea that I already have. A full belly makes a helpful friend. So I might be able to do another round with the chickens. This would be... Okay, so let me just think about this. So this metal would be what I use to level up transformations and liberations. So then that would mean the fet gets me the egg, and then the whist feeds the chicken. I'm not opposed to that. Do I have a better option? What was I planning on using? I guess I maybe would have tried to make a... do another trip to the Sweet Bones? Yeah, we'll see what the... Oh, sorry, I should be... should be continuing the chat. Oh, hang on. No, I remember now. Oh, drat. I was thinking of unlocking a secret of the house. Well, that's fine. We'll save that for later. Offer this piece my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. So I can't see making the wind and waiting working for me today, so I'm just gonna turn this into money. Is this the way to the wood? But perhaps the wood is not a suitable place for a librarian. Alright. Moment of truth. Transformations and liberations, level 8. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 9. So I believe this is the first level 9 skill that we've gotten to. Alright, sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Trumpeter's Lily, a glorious efflorescence of sunset orange. Moth orchid is soft as velvet to the touch, even when it except when it changes. Gather the scented blossoms of this fragrant chalice. Alright, more beeswax. Carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. Probably overkill, but... Oh, granite slab. That's actually useful, because we've had a couple of cases where I needed to do a... I've had a couple cases where I need to get like one forge in the, you know, when making iotic essence or orpiment exultant. Okay, so based off of this, we know that transformations and liberations is going to be moving up in the world. So in this case, we might as well just shuffle these all over by one. And then the Sacralameus, so I believe I need an element of the soul to, yeah, to lock this in. I'm not quite willing to give up the whist, seeing as we will be feeding the chicken. I wish I had a tidier bridge, but I've just kind of accepted. I've accepted the mess. And again, I'm sort of expecting that there will be a last-minute rush to get the remaining drinks in place. But I have enough poured that it's just a matter of, like, the 30 seconds when inviting everybody over. So, or not even 30 seconds. It's just a question of pouring at the most. Okay. I didn't really think about what I was going to feed it, so I'll use one of the acrid marrows. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. Put that in the kitchen. There it is. Our first level 9. Forge and Moth are less different than we think. Every change is in some way a release. I can't remember if we're... well, this was going to be Edict's Marshal. So actually, we have a way to go on... Yeah, apparently I overdid it for Ithistry. Assuming I was going to put it in Ithistry, this could actually be for Illumination as well. So why did I decide it was going to be not... That was definitely written on my tablet at some point. Or not, it's actually still written on my tablet, but I made that choice at some point. Yeah. I will worry about that later. Oh, but what I do want to do is a little bit of rearranging in the library. So these are the VAC. These are also VAC. Fusine and Deep Mandaic. Okay, so they seem to just be whatever. So with that in mind, I did actually say that there were a couple that get to count as free ones. So my deeds, my powers, my achievements, and the injustices perpetrated against me is definitely one of those free ones now. Just, you can't go any higher with transformations and liberations. And I think it's fair to say I've kind of committed to Preliminal Meter being a bit of a free agent here. So a novel method for invocation and contrition also counts. That I might actually need to put on this shelf. I think it's the only Ericapean text that I haven't worked out with. So really I do need to just, in terms of the surplus books, short of whatever we get from the Oriflamme's run, like it's really just the Queens of the Rivers that is the question mark here, and that's based purely on Path and Pilgrim. So what I may want to do at this point is just say, it's like, okay, well, Path and Pilgrim, I don't think I'm going to resolve this right now, but we can at least take a quick look at what we're working with here. So that one is... Where'd you go? Oh, here we go. So it's at level 4. So that's a Nyctodromy or a Birdsong. And I think because Nyctodromy is already kind of accounted for. So Path and Pilgrim is compete. Oh, that's right. Okay, yes, because I have a few candidates that I wrote here for potential Birdsong. So the potential Birdsong candidates are Rhyme and Remembrance, Sand Stories, Sea Stories, and Path and Pilgrim. So these are all sort of fighting for positions 4 through 7, I think. They're just sort of like ones that I've gestured down, saying like they're going in Birdsong. I'm just not quite sure where. Oh, right, that's why I probably said Sky Story. Well, okay, it sort of makes sense why Sky Stories might be one that's rated higher, but I don't know why I didn't say just leave that one at the last spot. It might be because it gives me some... I'm actually trying to remember what thing it would have given me that makes me say I want to have that in the top spot. Anyways, I made the note here. It was definitely put separate from these other 4. So if that's true, right, we don't really have anything for Rhyme and Remembrance right now. We don't have anything for Sand Stories. In fact, Sand Stories is currently at level 2, so that one would maybe make a little more sense to try and bring up to 4 so I don't need to worry about it anymore. Sea Stories, I think, is in a similar boat at position 2. So if anything, that's an excuse for me to move Path and Pilgrim even higher. Now, I won't do that now because clearly I'm going to want to use the memories. But I think in this case, this should actually be a no-brainer. I should just use this as a proper, hey, we're putting Path and Pilgrim up 1, and like maybe that'll just be an indicator to get to level 7 or something. Unfortunately, I've talked my way out of the salon, but at least we can close off the timers for today and invite the right people in. I didn't even think about replacement memory for tomorrow, but there you go. I will start writing a to-do list for myself, though. I also didn't do the description for this room, so maybe we will wrap up with that. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Actually, I will pause this out for a couple things. So the first thing that I want to do, salon. Second thing that I want to do, replace Wind and Waiting. So I was going to say I was willing to give up that occult scrap, and the fair statement would be that the logic under which I was willing to give up the occult scrap holds for the reasons that I said before are still true when I ultimately decided to do the Wind and Waiting. However, I will point out that right now Connie is the only new card that I have. Connie may in fact be the last guest that I haven't added to my book, at which point I don't believe I can generate any more occult scraps. There's the yellowing newspaper, but unless I get that through exploring the house, I shouldn't count on a reliable way to generate occult scraps. And furthermore, I'm sort of semi-preparing for a Numa. So imagine that I had used the occult scrap, then we use Connie's card to get the replacement, and the next season is Numa. I'm going to feel pretty bad about that. So in this case, the Wind and Waiting is more easily replaceable. I am going to allow myself the occult scrap, but you can kind of see how in a situation like Transformations and Liberations, the ability to bring in certain spare memories that are hard to get can sometimes mean the difference between getting to that level that you want or another. So this isn't true for the occult scrap, but an example of this would be... Oh, actually, you know what? I could have also used an old moment for the moth as well, now that I think of it. But old moment would have been easier to make than the Wind and Waiting, but it's no big deal. So one of the sorry, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, sorry. Preserving the occult scrap, it's like not a super high priority, but it's there. So yeah, replace the wind and waiting. Do the Salon, replace the wind and waiting. Oh, right. Path and Pilgrim +1. Obviously, we'll get some memories from the Salon as well to decide. Those will probably be good for raising the floor on a few of these. And then I think that's it. Have any other timers going? Okay. So, Our Lady Beneath. Who is Our Lady? The Red Grail, which gives life, which takes life, which is not sated. The Horned Axe, who bears two blades, who waits at the threshold, who sunders that which should not be joined. The Ringu, who is succulent, who is renewed, who encompasseth. Or a fourth, who is always signified, but never named. A librarian might phrase the question differently. Who was first? Oh, right, sorry. Get the treasure of the house with Sacra Lamea was the last thing I wanted. All right, so we get an altar of the knot. History is woven. A knot is a testament. We've got aspect of the malachite, Mylissa, queen and palace. One of the kinder aspects of the malachite, Mylissa, both queen and palace, who feeds all comers, whose body is the house in which her children dwell. Mylissa was not always a name of the malachite. She may have been a name of another hour. She may have even begun among the Carapace Cross before she chose eternity over history. Aspect of the axe, Zenodis Half-Faced. One of the more enigmatic aspects of the Horned Axe, Zenodis Half-Faced, who welcomes or slays strangers at the threshold. Zenodis is sister sometimes to owl and cat, sometimes to bull and butterfly, sometimes to dove and serpent. This hybrid nature suggests a link with the pre-human Carapace Cross, but that's not so surprising in a name of the axe. Aspect of the Grail, Lagia, the Queen Unsated. One of the crueler aspects of the Red Grail, Lagia, the Queen Unsated. Devouring mother, sister lover of Antaios. One tradition has it that Lagia took animal form so that she could satisfy her craving to devour her own children and go unpunished. Another, that the animal form was the punishment for her incest. The Grail has often been tolerant of contradictions. Perhaps her part in the intercalate really was, after all, a long and subtle move to undermine eternity, or perhaps she's just not to be trusted. Lots of little details to notice in these. There's human hair, of interest to wig makers, cushion stuffers, and crude sorcerers. Ambergris chunk, never call it whale vomit. Mortar and pestle, crush. Gervanite, an alloy equivalent in some respects to the clockmaker's Invar, but instead of a constant weight, it retains the same origin in every history. Moth orchid scented candle, a candle scented with moth orchid, a quartz chunk, ice rock, winking light. Lignum vitae blank, the hardest of all woods. And again, the altar of the knot, so moth, moon, and heart. History is woven, a knot is a testament. And we've got the wing-haunted cave, that's not new. And then we were thinking, right, I was also going to say riddling stair, question mark. Okay, so yeah, that was a little bit more than I was expecting. But so for those of you who've been waiting for the treasures of the house, we actually have, to my view, based on the books that I'm reading. So you'll kind of see a way that I've wanted to do treasures of the house, which is when I encounter texts that justify it. So in this case, Sunset Celia and the End of Days was the one that sort of justified the chancel, although clearly we'd run into that before. And of course, we also now have the book that gives us the Newman, so that also kind of helps us sort of say, okay, this is why these are big and important. But to my reckoning, we've got 2 and likely 3, if I'm willing to explain a bit, options for. We might even have a 4th, but I'm pretty sure we at least have 3. And it's just a matter of reading the relevant texts to bring it up. And again, that's mostly just so it's not sort of like, yeah, here and I do these 2 random things, and if you didn't know that, if you didn't watch a video or you didn't go on a wiki, there's no possible way you would have gotten it. I really don't like playing that way, and it's not stopped us from being able to make any progress anyway. So, but we're at the point now with the rooms that we've opened and the books that we've been reading. I think we've got a few places now to get certain texts. But, of course, all of that will be something we handle in the future. So, thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back Monday with the Salon. Until then, take care.